I'm so excited to chat with you today. Well, I want to start off with a big congratulations. I thought you were amazing. I was so excited that we got, even though it was shorter than I would have hoped, I'm so excited we got to experience, your story and get to meet you on this show. I'm curious for you. It's been months now. How are you feeling as you reflect back about your time on Drag Race?
Oh my goodness. I feel great, to be honest with you. I've been like, I can't sing praises enough for the cast, the production team, Canada's Drag Race, Crave, Bell Media. It's was an amazing journey. And I think coming out of it and having like the period of time that we did
Yeah.
have release was like much needed for me and my soul because I had so much going on prior to even filming the show, my
Yeah.
transition, academic, relationship, heartbreak. And I went in there at a 10, I didn't have really any time to mate or just even fully go inside, reflect, and like take a moment for everything that I put my body and myself through. Um, so having that time to kind of like look inward and just like have some me time of just like quiet, I didn't have to talk
Yeah.
about weren't allowed to talk about it, and I could just like do me for a little bit and like find my spark again, and now I'm here.
That's great. That's amazing. I guess that's true. Like when we meet you on the show and you are presenting, everybody's putting on trying to present their best side, right? Like we don't actually see what's happening underneath. So that's really fascinating. I'm curious how, as you reflect back as well, how do you feel that the experience of having done this has changed you?
Oh my goodness. I mean, like this opportunity, regardless of like how far I went on the show, in and of itself, is such a huge platform. And I can,
Yeah.
be grateful for because this is the biggest leg up in my career that I've had. And so I just like, I don't know, it's just like, yeah, I've lost myself. What was the question again?
I'm just curious how the experience has maybe changed you. Like, who do
Oh,
you feel like you're a different person on the other end of this experience?
yeah. I mean, like I'm wrapping back around to my last answer, like so much happened in the 2 years before getting onto the show, and it was a lot. And for me, I kind of lost myself. I kind of
Mhm.
lost soul in a way, and like I just was like on autopilot. And while this was like a great experience, like it really allowed me to, um, although the critiques were difficult for me to take at times, I feel the experience itself, I feel celebrated. I feel like I got um the validation that I needed as an artist. I may not have gotten far, but I did get on the show, and out of
Yeah.
thousands, people that apply, I'm one of the, small amount that got selected for the show. So that in itself was very like rewarding. And
Yeah.
now being out here and seeing the way the promo went and just how big of a buzz that like my presence on the show created was like, very, very nourishing and very like validating to me as a person.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad because I do feel like no matter what, getting on the show is winning. And the
Mhm.
real race always starts after the show anyway. It's what
Totally.
you do with it. So, yeah, I think you should be very, very proud of what you
Thank
accomplished. The other thing is, I don't, you are an amazing lyricist. Did you know that going in? And are you going to do anything with that now that we've
uh,
seen what you can do?
you know what? I'm like, it's funny because like my friends back in Germany, they make fun of me because I speak better than when I type. I think when I write things down, I over articulate things, and
Mm,
sometimes trying to say gets lost. So I think that was my biggest worry going into that. I love speaking, and so I'm glad that that all came together because like what you don't see is like we had like so much time to do it, but I was really struggling because I get really embarrassed, and like putting myself out there is like a lot easier for me on social media than it is to like relate my feelings in on paper as a song, because music isn't necessarily what I'm used to or what I'm like
mhm.
good at. But I think now that I know that I have that kind of skill under my belt, I do want to explore that a bit more. And I think that's part of the show. What I was excited for was being pushed into places that I haven't really gone before and like see what else I'm good at. And that, I guess, seems to be one of them.
That's amazing. I'll be honest, I felt like your verse was the best of the bunch, like kind of by a mile. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All the other girls had amazing lyrics.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about your final lip sync.
Mhm.
It seemed like maybe you were struggling a little bit with your reveal, or like maybe it was like uncomfortable. Can you tell me a little bit about that moment?
It wasn't too much of a reveal, so to
Okay.
speak. Like for me, I don't like to perform with a lot on because I like to move around.
Yeah.
And wearing latex, wearing a corset was pretty restrictive.
Yeah.
And going into that, like all I wanted to do was like go the heck off. And I was just struggling, it just like my nerves took over. The lyrics, the song itself was a very wordy song.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics
Mm-hmm.
top of writing my own lyrics was a lot. So there was a lot of things working against me in that moment, or at least like what I had internalized in my head. And I fortunate, but yeah, when it comes down to like performing, like one thing that I'm sure of and that I'm good at is like putting on a show and like taking my clothes off and going off. And it's just like everything went kaput. Everything was just like, wah, wah, wah.
I don't know. You had a pretty iconic exit line, I will say. Like, even
Ah!
though yeah, I laughed out loud when you're like, just remember, I was the pretty one. So if
Ah!
you're the pretty one, who's the trade of the season?
Oh, I mean, I was the trade. I beat This will kill me for saying this, but it's about time that we had a tradeette of the season, and I humbly accept that honor
Humbly, of course, the keyword.
and self-claimed.
Amazing. Well, one of the things we saw, obviously, along with your beauty and your talent, was, your story, which was incredibly moving. And I'm curious if you telling your story has resulted in people reaching out to you, have you been sharing their stories, and how that experience has been for you?
Ah, no, similarly to my transition, I did document everything while it was happening, and
Hmm.
I so many people, so many trans women. And so, like, same thing with the show. It's like now that it's come out and I've been able to share myself as a person with the world, like I've just connected with a lot of people, a lot of like young trans artists too that find some kind of similarity or like resonate with what I do and who I am as a performer. And I always love just like getting these messages from people, and especially with the elimination, I've gotten so many beautiful messages, but also like trans girls in other cities, other countries that send me videos of them performing and they feel confident to like, you know, hold their breast out on stage. And I think it's a little bit different than when a cis girl does it because like
Hmm.
shame that goes around a trans body. And one thing that what I do with my drag and why I love being naked is like I love celebrating me. I love celebrating the work that I put into myself, the pain that I went through to be able to like be this person in front of you and normalizing trans bodies, there's such a spectrum of it and a lot of people don't understand the unknown. And for me it was like pulling out my breast when I was younger or like at my early stages of transition. It's just like you feel like you're going through puberty. You develop almost like these puberty breasts that like teenagers would get, and it just comes down to normalizing that level of puberty with the rest of the world because people like me have to go through two puberties. you know
Oh, yeah.
Someone who was assigned male at birth and is now female. And it makes me really proud and honored that people have found confidence in themselves through what I do to bring that to the table and bring that to the world and do it unapologetically and beautifully.
Oh, that's amazing. I think about that, how you are now on this huge platform, right? Drag Race is the biggest drag stage in the world. And by virtue of that, you kind of become a role model. And I'm curious, something that you're happy to take on, or is that something that how do you feel about that being considered a role model?
I love that. It is something that I feel is, we'll see how, I think people will put on expectations of me, but I think as long as we know that, like, I'm not trying to be the role model for like the American teen dream to, like, grow up to be this like humble, modest woman. Like, I'm here to celebrate and provide a visual representation of, like, hopefully freedom for trans women,
Mm,
like, be able to express themselves the way that they want. And I think as long as people, like, keep it straight what my position is as a role model and what I represent, then there shouldn't be any issues. And I
mhm.
help, you know, want to be that person for anybody. And I hope that people can and feel comfortable to reach out and, connect with me.
I find that really incredible and incredibly generous considering how dangerous and scary it can be on social media right now, especially for outspoken trans women. And as you, I know, personally have experienced. So I salute and applaud what you're doing.
Thank
All right. I know we're at the end of our time. And I don't
That
want
was
to leave on a sad note. I know it's so fast. I have like 100 more questions for you, but you have so many people to talk to. So this is just a fun one. Snatch game. Who were
snatch.
you gonna be?
I can't tell you. You're just gonna have to wait and see till that week comes around.
Okay. Interesting.
I
Very
I
interesting.
I have some good ones, so just stay tuned.
Okay. I will. This has
Okay.
been so much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Like I said, your story is so inspiring. I think it's going to be deeply meaningful to a lot of trans women out there and people who love trans women. So thank you for sharing it. And I cannot wait to see what you do next.